Tandem Nomads, episode 35.
Communicate your non-negotiables. I mean, trust in your partner.
Probably don't be selfish. Look at both sides of the coin.
Welcome to Tandem Nomads, where inspiring expat partners from around the world share with you how they turn the challenges of relocation into great opportunities. So are you following your partner abroad for his or her career? Then Tandem Nomads is the place for you. Go to tandemnomads.com and sign up for the newsletter. Hello, Nomad Nation. This is Emel Deregi, and today I'm very excited to introduce you two people. It's the first time I'm going to interview a couple at the same time. It's Helene and Manfred. They are both Austrians, and today they live in Shanghai. Since I started Tandem Nomads, I always wished I could interview both members of an expat couple to have a different perspective represented. But I have to say that for many reasons, it is not the easiest thing to organize. Helene and Manfred's case is quite a particular one, as they have been alternatively the following partner. Manfred was living in South Africa, running a furniture design business, when Helene quit her job and joined him there. After a few years, Helene felt the need to go back to Austria, so this time Manfred, who quit his business in South Africa, joined her in Austria. After a few years, they both started having itchy feet, and Manfred had an offer he couldn't refuse. He was sent to Shanghai as the sales director of a leading company in aerospace industry. After only a couple of years, he became the CEO of the company. In the meantime, Helene had joined him for the second time and managed to build a successful professional path in HR. In a couple of years, she also managed to prove her value and became the HR director of the American school in Shanghai. Few months ago, Manfred quit his job. He wanted to go back to study and enroll in an MBA program in aviation management. And today, Helene continues to manage the HR department of the American school in Shanghai, while Manfred travels between Austria and Shanghai for his MBA program. So, Manfred and Helene, I hope that I summarized things not too wrongly. Is there anything I missed about your life and your achievements?
I think you know it quite well.
You got it all.
You nailed it.
Oh, good. So, Helene, I'd like to start with you. How did you end up deciding to move to South Africa?
Well, Manfred and I got to know each other, I think, in 1998. We met briefly at the birthday party. And then the year after, we fell in love on a sailing trip in Greece. And then we started traveling forth and back between South Africa and Austria. And I mean, I'm sure that you or a lot of or your listeners know, I mean, long distance relationships can be really tough. And after about 2 years, we basically decided it's either one is going to move or we going to break up, because I mean, as fun as it was to see each other every second month, but you know, one of us has always been on vacation, and it was not real life, and we wanted to be part of each other's life. And so that's when I decided to make the move to South Africa. I think I was excited, but I was also a little bit naive when moving there, because I thought, well, yeah, somehow I'm going to make this work. You know, I mean, I knew that getting a job would be really tough there, because this was after the end of apartheid. I underestimated how difficult it was to really settle. On the one hand, it was very easy to settle in because people were so open and welcoming. I still made a good life, because within 2 months' time, I had a lot of friends. But the realization that, you know, you will not be legal unless you get married, you will not have a stable job unless you get married, that was quite tough.
Oh, okay. So you needed to have like an official status to be able to get a job. And how did you do, for example, with your visa? I guess that's also an issue.
Well, yes, and so I was there on a tourist visa, And every 3 months I had to leave the country, which led me to have amazing travel, with fun travels. But it has been a harsh reality that you're kind of not legal and you have to leave every 90 days. Also, in the very beginning, it was very interesting because obviously we knew each other for more than 2 years, but then we had never lived together, and suddenly I was there, and Manfred also was not used to have somebody there 24/7, and it was like it really took a couple of months for us to get used to each other and to accept that while we are together, each of us still has their own lives and their own friends, and it's not like you take on the full responsibility for the other. But it took a couple of months. It was not an easy adjustment initially.
Yeah. So what helped you to find, first of all, personally, Helen, as the partner who joined in the foreign country? How did you manage to deal with it during those 2 years? What has helped you deal with those challenges you just so well explained?
I think that the best part was that it was so easy to make friends outside of your relationship, and so you become very independent, and that was wonderful. And I think it's important, or at least for us as a couple, it's important that we keep that independency at times, so that we go out and meet other people and bring that rich experience back into our relationship.
Interesting. So Manfred, could you tell us a bit of your perspective during that time in South Africa? You could see Helen having a bit of challenges continuing her career. She did well finding friends, but how was it for you to know that Helen, changed her life for you?
Well, I mean, it was a kind of, as Helen explained, a very difficult situation for her. I think we were both a little bit shell-shocked, to put it in a very drastic way. As Helen said, we didn't live together before, and I had been living in South Africa already for 13 years, so it was sort of my friends, my environment, my furniture, my everything, and this was a new situation for both of us, of course. And but Helen, the tough soldier as she is, I think she marched through it quite well, or actually very, very well. And we were fortunate enough to live in a almost like a village in the city called Melville, where we had a lot of amazing friends around us. Of course, the weather helped. A wonderful country to live in, with lots of entertainment opportunities and travel opportunities. So it took us a couple of months to pull through, but I think, as it is with many relationships, when it's the right partner, you go through troubles. So
you're ready to go through those difficulties.
Yes, of course.
So what was if there is one thing that helped you both find that balance at that moment and still go through that edge of those first months without cracking, if there's one secret, what do you think it was?
I think what we've learned over the years and what we both enjoy is to look ahead. If times are tough, to plan, to look ahead, and to plan nice things. If it's now holidays or buying a house or an apartment that one wants to have, or furniture, or whatever, we always been planning things, and I think that helped us a lot. And we always we reached quite ambitious goals in our careers, which we actually didn't plan, I believe. But we sort of pulled each other through difficult times. I mean, of course, a relationship needs a certain level of respect in order to pull through difficult times.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I like the fact that you said it's what has helped you was to look ahead and always imagine the future, and I guess this is what makes the fundamentals of a successful relationship in a couple, is to look at the future. And this is a very good point.
And I believe, especially for expats, it does help, and it always has helped us that we weren't homesick.
Definitely. But so talking of going home, how come you both decided, I don't know who decided, who started the procedure of wanting to go back to Austria?
It was definitely me. One day waking up and saying, I cannot fathom my life without work. And while I love you to pieces, I have to go. and the biggest commitment Manfred has ever made to me was for him to say, okay, I'll come with you. Because he left Austria when he was 21. He had never worked in Austria, and we knew that going back it would be extremely difficult. So, now we've known each other for 18 years, but...
18 years. And married since?
Oh, yes.
You just married recently.
Yeah.
After 18 years, it's beautiful.
But, for me, it was never that important because, as I said, the commitment Manfred made when he was going back to Austria with me was all I could ever wish for.
I think we're not a very traditional couple.
No, not at all. And yet, I like the fact that you talked about commitment, Helen, and that it's even more important than being married, and the fact that he did quit his, business in South Africa and joined in Austria because he just wanted to be with you as much as you wanted to be with him when you went to South Africa. And I guess you did, you compromise for each other alternatively. So I think this is the great thing of the balance in your relationship, is that you both did that move for each other.
Yeah, and it, as we anticipated, coming home was not so difficult for me because I had grown up there. I had a circle of friends. I could just go back to work. It was quite easy for me. It was very tough for Manfred.
So tell us, Manfred, how did you experience that big move?
Oh, you don't want to know. No, I felt almost like I felt alienated going back home. We went to Tyrol, where Helen originally comes from, and where she got a very good job. And I was going from one interview to the next, and for me it was like almost a culture shock coming home again after 15 years. And so I really needed to take my time to acclimatize to people and society. And I did spend two winters as a ski instructor. I did my ski instructor license exam, and I did for 4 months in winter. I was a ski instructor, mainly for Anglo-Saxon, English-speaking people, South Africans, Australians, British people, and that really pulled me through the winter, I must say. And summers being beautiful in Austria, I did a lot of mountain biking and sports and travel, which was the savior for me. But it really wasn't easy. And then I went to many interviews, and I was accepted for various jobs, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. And then the right job came along, and I suppose that took us then to the next chapter.
Yeah. So I want to focus a bit on the fact that you did try to find you did a big change it's quite something to go from managing a furniture design business to going to ski instructor. And that shows a lot of flexibility and being ready to do anything to be active, right?
Well, I like skiing very much. And I mean, if you live in Tyrol there and there are not too many international companies where you would find the job that I was looking for. So I needed to take this time to find the right job, wherever that was. Of course, together with Helen's blessing, but it took that long. It took 18 months or 2 years.
Wow. So how was it this time for you to be dependent? Because financially, this time you were dependent on Helen.
Well, we had worked a bit. We had a bit of savings. Again, we knew there's light at the end of the tunnel of this situation. It's going to change. There's going to be something else at the end of the road.
Yeah, but psychologically, wasn't it difficult? I mean, it's still not quite usual for a man to have a time where he doesn't work and when the wife does, or the partner, sorry. So was it psychologically an issue for you, or was it okay?
It was psychologically an issue for me, that the entire situation coming from a very open, very colorful South African society in a kind of a narrow-minded society, putting it this way, or not so colorful society. And I think that was a much bigger issue.
It was the culture shock, the repatriation was much more difficult for you than the professional situation.
I can easily live with the fact that Helen brings in the money. I have no problem with that.
That's good. So Helen, tell us about your time in Austria when you came back. Did you first of all have the same culture shock, the culture repatriation, although you were not gone for so long? And how was it for you on your side? Did you feel under the pressure knowing that he quit his job and came to Austria for you?
I mean, I fit it right back in because this is what I knew, and I wasn't gone for so long that I had disconnected from it all. So it was easy for me to find a job. That's actually the time when I started to work in HR, and I was pretty successful pretty quickly. And so that the professional life took off very quickly. But of course, it's a struggle that you have, that that your partner would like to be active and out in the business world as well. But then it's tough to find the right thing. And I think looking back, as tough as it has been, we still think it was so good that we had each other, and we allowed each other to wait until the right job came along, because there were jobs coming along all the time, but if you settle for not even, I'm not talking about second best, you settle for anything, then that's kind of the life you build as well, and we didn't settle for that. And so I think that as tough as it was the absolute right decision to make, and again we pulled through.
Yeah, you did. What was it, according to you at that time? I mean, you seem to have been very patient, but it's easy to say it now. I'm sure that it must have been frustrating for both of you during that time of uncertainty that lasted for at least a couple of years. So how did you manage to, keep the balance again in your relationship, knowing that you were under that pressure?
I think it's sanity. I mean, you've got to have a certain amount of sanity in your relationship, and I think career was never everything for us. We have been very successful, but a lot of it happened. It just happened. It wasn't really planned. It wasn't really I need to have this in this position. I need to have this in this power, or I got to be on that pay level. That was never a plan from our side. We knew we wanted to have interesting jobs. We knew we wanted to be out there, but we actually didn't have a clue what was the name of this job or in what industry. I think a lot of it has been luck, but also I think we have been open to luck.
When I look at our relationship, it has always been a matter of close or tight loose, in the sense of, first we had a long distance relationship. Then, in South Africa we lived together, we spent a lot of time together. Back in Austria it was, Manfred did his thing, he traveled a lot on his mountain bike. He was gone for maybe a week, came back, we spent time together. And I think that looking at all back at the 18 years, and then when he started to work, was working in sales. Then he started to travel even more. And in his time now in China, he traveled more than 50% of his time. But I think that's also part of our success as a couple, is that we go away, we do our own things, and then we reconnect, and we don't get bored with each other, and it's interesting. I mean,
and also Helen has been extremely understanding always when it came to my jobs, and I had to fly out the next day. I did a lot of around the world trips for the last 11 years. And it has never been, or it was never once that Helen said, "No, I don't want you to travel now," or "You're gone again," or this kind of. There was never a guilt trip laid on me. Mm-hmm. It was always, "It's your job. This is what you like. You go for it." And I mean, having been traveling or having not slept in my bed for 30 weeks a year is a long time.
It is.
And Helen has always been extremely understanding, and I think that helped a lot.
It's not it's not even so understanding. I enjoy that freedom to
have him away.
You want to get rid of me.
When are you traveling next?
I see. No, but you do respect a lot each other's freedom. I can feel it. It avoids the routine, it seems, to happen in your relationship.
True.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Partly true.
So you did mention traveling back and forth in Shanghai. Could you take us through the point where you decided to leave Austria and go to Shanghai?
When we came back from South Africa, when we moved back to Austria, we were always saying, if we have a chance to go abroad again, should the opportunity come up, we'll certainly take it.
So why did you say that, Helen? Because at the beginning you wanted to come back home. How come you were ready to move again?
Because I've always been interested in the world. I mean, even when I was young and I traveled, I was never one of these people that, after a few weeks of traveling said, well, it's time to go home and I'm actually looking forward. It has never been that way. So, while I enjoyed being home, having my family close, having my friends close, after a while, okay, you have satisfied that need again and you're ready to go out.
Okay. So Manfred got a great offer and you accepted the job and you decided to go to Shanghai. And so how did it work?
Well, it actually happened a little bit in a different way. I accepted the job first in Austria, take over the sales and marketing for my company for Asia. And then in 2 years into the job, my then boss asked me if I was willing to move over here permanently to build up an office and a production. And that thinking process took us 5 minutes, and then the actual process to move it took us another year.
Okay, so it was easy to decide that you would go for both of you.
Yes.
It was easy. We knew we would love to do it. It was, however, I was because I had a job that I really loved, and I said, this time if we go, I will go when I have got a job secured, because I know that I will scratch the plaster off the wall if after 3 months if there's nothing to do. And however, when I started to look for jobs, it turned out to be quite easy.
Oh, how come do you think it was easy? Was it
because China was an emerging market, and lots of companies wanted to get in. There were lots of when I came over here, I started to work for a small German consultancy. There were lots of consultancies at that time, and it provided me an entry ticket, and it was a very good learning curve, because it allowed me, from the bottom up to learn about Chinese labor law and all these things that I benefit from every day now.
Yeah, so it did take your career to a place where you might have not imagined, right?
True, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely.
But you must have had a bit of competition too in Shanghai. I mean, you were not the only one who wanted to go there. So is there any advice you could share to be able to find a job so quickly?
I think, when you are adaptable, you will find a job. As Manfred said before, we have never been totally set in our way, in the sense of, I need to have this position, I need to earn this much, I need to, have whatever you some people need to have. We were never that way, and so, the initial job wasn't an amazing job. It was a small company. It didn't pay amazingly, but it provided me an entry ticket, and I was willing to take that ticket. Because I thought, once you're here on the ground, you have learned what you need to learn. Then you look around, and that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly how I ended up with my job.
And then you suddenly got this amazing. It's quite an important position you have now at the American school, which is a huge school. How did you do that transition? Well,
I had quit my job at the German consultancy, and I was looking around. I went to lots of networking events, and there's actually a club in Shanghai. It's called the Professional Expatriate Women Shanghai Club, and I went to one of these networking events and basically picked up a job.
Wow.
So, I think that my recommendation for people is be adaptable, be willing to actually go for something slightly different to what you would expect or what you could have at home, and then prove that you can do it.
Manfred, you became the CEO of a very important company in the aerospace industry, and suddenly you just decided to quit everything. What happened?
Well, I suppose it became too much, just traveling all the time around the world, between the US and Europe, and I felt like I'm being stuck in this hamster wheel, and we're not having any kids, so there's less responsibility there. And I'm turning 50 next year, so I thought it's either now or never. And I got this information in the post about this aviation business master, and I thought, ooh, that sounds like interesting. And so I started the discussion with my company about a year ago what my plans were, and must say thank you to my company. It was a very pleasant handover over 12 months, and I eventually resigned 6 months ago. And then I had a 6-month handover period, a final one. And now I'm doing my master and flying forwards and backwards between Europe and Asia. And in between, I try to do some sports.
Fantastic. So how do you see your lives now, coming from now on? Because you said at the beginning, one of your secrets is to look ahead. So what are you looking at ahead now?
Well, looking ahead right now means the next 2 years. The master takes 2.5 years, and I will try and put my CV out there in a year's time or in 6 months' time. And as we all know, it always takes a little bit of time for the right job to come along. But I don't put pressure on myself, and I don't feel any pressure from Helen yet. And I take it one step at a time. So the next goal is to finish the master and see what comes along. I think good experience, good international experience. There's always a job for me. I don't have a negative outlook.
Yeah.
Simple.
And will you both be ready now to leave Shanghai, or
no? No. We are not ready. I mean, as difficult as the initial 6 to 8 months were here in Shanghai, because you feel it's easy to feel isolated because of language. I mean, you arrive here and suddenly everything becomes difficult. I mean, we are talking 8 months, 8 years ago now, and there were no taxi apps, and there was no Uber, and so everything is difficult, from the grocery shopping to getting around. It is.
But at the same time, it becomes really funny to just find your way home. I mean, it was like a mission in the beginning, and so. But you have to cherish those moments, right? Because what is simple in other countries or at home suddenly becomes a project, and you got to cherish those moments as well, because this doesn't last forever, right? And it's something to talk about.
Mm-hmm. But now we are really, really hooked, and we love this city. It feels, it was so difficult for me to get used to the chaos, and now I thrive on it. I go home because working for school, I have the luxury of having 5 weeks of summer vacation, and we spend these weeks mostly back in Europe, and after 5 weeks of Europe, I'm so ready to come back to this chaos.
So interesting.
I just love it.
How did you feel the transition? How did you feel that suddenly things were changing? You were mentioning how challenging it was at the beginning to find your way, the culture difference, the chaos. What made the change progressively?
Again, friends. I mean, the first 6 months, they were so difficult because we knew nobody. And so I just felt isolated, and
we've never been the extroverts, put it that way. So it took us some time to meet the right people and the right people to hang out with, and but also from a cultural point of view, once you start to understand that people in different cultures do it differently, things that irritated us in the beginning, we love now.
Oh, that's an important point.
Small things, in Asian culture that would irritate us in the beginning, we now really understand and cherish the way different cultures behave. You have to look at the positive aspects as well wherever you are.
Could you give us an example of, you mentioned both of you the culture shock you had at the beginning. Is there an example you can give us and how you managed to suddenly understand how it works?
I mean, for me, when I came on with Manfred, I came on a look and see a year before we moved here. And Manfred was on a business trip and I accompanied him, and obviously he had to work, and there were, I had my Lonely Planet and I was ready to take on the city. Mm-hmm. And then the first item on my to-do list is visit Girkinger, which is insane. I mean, I showed up at Girkinger at 11 o'clock in the morning, and there were like millions of people, and there were so many hawkers, and they were so loud, and everybody talked at me, and everybody tried to sell something, and I was so intimidated that I just ran. I felt I cannot take this for 1 second longer. Oh. And so, because people initially, when you arrive here, you always have the feeling that people are angry with each other until you realize that, okay, they are a very noisy bunch of people, and this is just normal chit chat. There is no aggression involved. None whatsoever. But because you don't understand a single word, it comes across so aggressive.
When did you start understanding that was just the way they express themselves and there's no anger there?
Both of us, September, we arrived here in January, and in September we had I think a 1 week or 2 week vacation in Europe, and when we came back, it was like somebody flipped the switch. It was home for us.
Interesting.
Yeah, you start talking to people. So, I started talking to people at work, and, we had a little canteen there, and there was like an old lady cooking for us at lunchtime. Why is she so angry? Why is she so angry with this guy? And my colleagues stared at me and said, they're not angry. They're having a normal conversation. So people start to educate you about what this is all about, that it's just your impression coming from a different culture. There's no aggression whatsoever. It's only your interpretation.
Yeah, such a good point. I like the fact, I think it's a great example to show how important, in order to adapt to different cultures, it is to never judge a situation with our own beliefs and our own standards and references, and always try to realize that we have to see the different perspective of it and ask the question like you did. So you did change, I guess, a lot of your own personalities through this experience. What did it bring to you in general, the experiences you had through South Africa and now Shanghai?
Well, it changed certainly the way we behave, because now when we go back to Austria during the summers, we get speeding tickets, and we once got pulled off the highway by police patrol.
I think we have more patience, and definitely on a grander scale, understanding for different cultures, and therefore we're very careful to judge different cultures and their habits.
You become a master in adapting, because the reality is the basic life here requires that you to do so. I'm talking about the simplest things, that there's never consistent supply in groceries, for example. Mm-hmm. So you going out and thinking you tonight it will be lamb rack. No, here you will have. Plan A is your lamb. Plan B is it's beef stew, and Plan C is it's a vegetarian pasta. Because And this is like one simple example, because you have to adapt.
So, yeah, that's a very good example. Like, you think you're going to get this and you won't get it, so you better be flexible. That's a good point. And I think it's a great metaphor in general in adapting to any country, right? Is to not have expectations. And you've been proving as a couple, but also in terms of culture shock, the importance of being flexible and also having, being ready to adjust our expectations. And if I have to take two things from all what you said, I would say that those two key points. But is there any other advice you would both give to expats and couples in particular who have one, and often there's always one following the other, to go through this journey and manage to build this stability and thrive abroad?
Well, I think for us it is definitely have fun and enjoy while it lasts, because what we have seen over many, many years living abroad is that your company will send you home at one point. And for many of our friends and acquaintances that we had over the years that weren't as flexible as we are, because of not having children, because both of us working, it's not easy just to stay in the country with 2 or 3 kids and just hope that the next job comes along, and then you go back with your company back to your country. And most of the people we talk to really miss it, being abroad, being away, experiencing the different cultures. And it only lasts that long for most expats. And my advice would be enjoy it. Just live it.
Very good advice. What about you, Helen?
I think that my advice is be patient with each other. And I think, communicate your non-negotiables. I mean, I mentioned it before when I wasn't happy not being able to work in South Africa. I learned my lesson. When we moved to China, it was, I'm happy and I'm very keen to move, but I will move once I have a job. And, if it would have taken me 6 months, Manfred would have gone ahead and we would have managed, trust in your partner.
Very, very important. I like when you said communicate your non-negotiables. This is very important. You have to know yourself first a lot to know what can you handle or not, and then make sure that you communicate it in the right way to your partner. Is there any tip that you can share in expressing something that might not be pleasant to the other one, but still making sure that you listen to your needs and also prove and show the respect you mentioned right now in the relationship?
Well, probably don't be selfish. Look at both sides of the coin. You got to look ahead, of course. What will it bring your partner if you stay in this position and your partner will not get a job? I mean, it takes both sides, right? I mean, you can't be selfish.
Yeah. But how would you express it if you're not happy with the situation? For example, let's say now Helen is doing great in Shanghai and you are now, studying and traveling back and forth to Austria for your studies. What if suddenly you find a job somewhere else and you just want to go? How are you going to announce that to Helen?
Well, that really is not the case, because we have an alternate rule, which basically means we've been following in each other. So Helen was following me to South Africa, I followed her to Austria, she followed me to China. It's her turn.
Okay, so you had this rule when? How did you settle this rule?
Well, it's just natural, right? I mean, it's none of us is domineering here.
Interesting. So you do have this unsaid rule of balance. You try to build equity in your relationship by doing both alternatives.
And again, everything is about communication. Should this amazing job come along that would take me to California, I think it might not take much convincing for Helen to come with. So it always depends what's on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm. So Helen, are you ready to move?
No, not yet. But I mean, if we move to LA tomorrow, well, I might follow in a few months.
I see.
No, but the non-negotiables. I mean, yes, it is difficult to communicate, and it will not be easy. But the reality is, it will come out anyway. And the reality is so much better to communicate upfront what you're able to deal with or you're not able to deal with, rather than then having to clean up an aftermath. And I mean, not every. I understand that not every relationship is happy and is thriving on the changes that we're going through. But the key to every relationship is communication.
Yeah. But is there one tip? Because it's such a general, everybody says that, that we should communicate. But is there one method you have that makes the communication healthy?
I think that's very, very difficult. It's on a very individual basis on how the relationship functions. Yeah. And I think because you got to be able to afford certain choices financially. You got to look at what age you're at. The younger, the more choices you have ahead. Do you have kids? Do you want kids? These are all aspects that play into the question and then into the answer, of course. But for us, it is pretty easy. I mean, I think we are a very, very good team, and I think that makes the cookie crumble for us.
Yeah, you're a great team, but I think you also have a very clear idea, both of you, of what you want and what you're ready to be flexible on. And I think this is a bit, from what I've heard today, is what I feel, is that you are both ready to be flexible, but you also know things that you don't want to bend on. And you both communicated it to each other. And I guess this must help.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Great. Wow, this was a lot of things that we shared today. And so if Nomad Nation wants to ask you some questions, what's the best way to find you?
My name in LinkedIn.
And Helen?
Well, I suppose if you look up the website of Shanghai American School, you will definitely find me.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, Helene and Manfred. This was such a pleasure to talk with you, and thank you for taking the time to share your experience and your great, great advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amel.
It's been fun.
Nomad Nation, don't miss any of the great inspiration, tips, and insights that will prepare just for you. Go to tandemnomads.com and sign up for the newsletter.